Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I want to start with a quote. The quote is from a guy called Neil McKinnon, and it appeared in the Daily Mirror recently. And Mr. McKinnon was a teacher at Winchester School when Sunak was there, and he taught him. And he said the following: "For me, Brexit is completely unforgivable. His," and he's talking about Sunak, "his support for it was purely self-serving. He knew to a single penny how much it would cost, but he put his career in the Conservative Party ahead of that and supported it. I don't know how he sleeps at night after knowingly putting a slow puncture in UK PLC." And I think that tells us quite a lot. I think Sunak, like Johnson, pursued Brexit because he saw it as the best way of advancing his career. And we're all paying the price, and if you believe in karma, well, so are Johnson and Sunak. And I think you can see very publicly how it's all falling apart, and how you can see how Sunak hasn't got a clue. He is completely and utterly inept politically, as we've said many times before. I think he's very unpopular. He's tetchy. I suspect that a lot of those around him don't have much time for him. And he called the election without really consulting any of his cabinet, or very few of his cabinet. Surprised everybody, presumably for his own reasons. And we've seen what an absolute, utter disaster the last 2 weeks have been, the first 2 weeks of the election campaign. And heaven knows what it's going to be like by the time we get to July the 4th. And if you think, it's difficult to remember them all, but if you think about how he started, standing out in Downing Street in the pouring rain, looking absolutely ridiculous. What was the point of it? What was it supposed to show how tough he was? Standing there getting drenched whilst Steve Bray's blaring out things going to get better from the end of the street. It was a pathetic start. It was kind of a metaphor for his entire premiership, this ridiculous sight. And then within a day or so, he's off in Belfast in front of the Titanic Museum being interviewed. Did someone say to him, "Look, Prime Minister, this is a jolly good idea. I know the whole government is sinking. We're all going down. Let's go and stand in front of the Titanic Museum and hope that nobody actually suggests there's any similarity, or that it might be a metaphor for our incompetence and our ineptitude." Then all these things like the photographs, aren't they? He's photographed with exit signs over his head. He's photographed another day looking like Mickey Mouse. And then they put out a political broadcast, a Conservative Party political broadcast, and the flag's flying upside down. And you think, every pedant in the country, whenever they see a Union Jack, looks to see whether or not it's upside down or not. And it's a 50-50 chance, that no one actually spotted that is almost beyond belief. And then there was the Liberal Democrats. Whilst he was sat on a riverbank somewhere talking to some young people, the Liberal Democrats floated past with all a boat covered in their advertising and posters and so on. And you have to say to yourself, well, either Sunak takes control of all these things, in which case he's utterly inept, or he appoints people who should be looking after him. Every personality, every celebrity, every senior politician these days is micromanaged in terms of appearances. It's all about the optics, they call it, don't they? The fact that people could have let this happen, people could let him be photographed in these embarrassing situations, or that they should let him go to Titanic. Either he's appointed these people, in which case he's appointing absolute cretins, or he's not got anybody, and he's making all this mess himself. And of course, the absolute classic was yesterday in North France with the D-Day ceremonies. The idea that he should come home early and not think that was a political risk, or that his advisors didn't think there was a political risk there, seems almost beyond belief. I mean, in one single instance, he offended just everybody. He offended the rest of the UK. He offended those who were there in France yesterday. He offended all the veterans, those who are still alive, and those that are. He offended everybody by just saying, I've got more important things to do. And the more important things to do, as we all know now, was that he had an interview with ITV. And then the grovelling, pathetic apology this morning, which has appeared, I've seen on the internet today, it's all over the foreign press. Everywhere it's saying how Sunak apologised for going early and how it was a mistake. And you just can't really believe such ineptitude. And it's almost as though, and I'm not suggesting it is, but it's almost as though someone is deliberately sabotaging his campaign, because it can't really get much worse. I mean, he's got another 4 weeks of this. And I saw him this morning being interviewed about the apologies and so on, and he was saying, he kept saying that these things are arranged months in advance. Well, months in advance, did he know there was going to be an election? Months in advance, did he have to fix an appointment with ITV which couldn't be changed? It's just so pathetic. And he really does look weak and miserable now. God, I mean, what it must be like to be him, I can't imagine. But it just makes so many. He just makes so many mistakes, and then you see at the same time Starmer, who by doing nothing is just growing and growing in stature. Seeing Starmer yesterday being photographed with King Charles and being photographed with Zelensky and being photographed with Macron and so on, he looked like the statesman, the Prime Minister, whereas Sunak scurried off home for an interview with ITV, which will not be shown for another 2 weeks, apparently. Truly an appalling man. And now, I mean, I'm recording this at about mid-afternoon on Friday. Well, this evening at 7:30, there's the debates with the 7 parties taking part, and who's representing the Tories? Well, it's Penny Mordaunt. Well, she's been a reserve naval officer for about 10 years, or she was, and she's very close associations with the military, and she's bound to be asked about this. Absolutely bound. It's bound to be one of the main questions, and how does she answer it? I mean, this could well have actually ruined her chances of getting re-elected. She's only got a majority of 15,000, which is vulnerable these days, and she's got to cope with this. It's he's like. He's like, it's like me captaining the England squad in the Euros. He's got no idea what he's doing. He doesn't have the skills or the ability, and yet he's so determined to press on and continue to make a fool of himself. And everybody's deserting him. I mean, even last week he lost The Spectator, and that's an extremely right-wing, pro-government or pro-conservative magazine, and they've dumped him. They were very critical of him. And the campaign itself. I mean, the debate last week was another disaster, really, for Sunak, because he kind of got tetchy, and he decided, obviously, it was decided that he would bang on about this £2,000 tax that he maintained that people would have to pay extra £2,000 in tax. People would have to pay if they voted Labour, and he repeated it 13 times. And Starmer didn't come back, and everybody said, well, he should have done, he should have challenged it. But I think he was very smart. I think he played a blinder here, actually, because what he knew was that the moment these debates were over, the press would start picking over this £2,000 claim, and now it's been found to be a complete nonsense. And the Treasury officials who Sunak claimed had been involved in calculating this £2,000 extra tax have all disclaimed it, and he's looking, although he's still doubling down on it, he's looking more and more foolish as time goes by. But you kind of wonder where it can go from here. I mean, how much worse can it get? It must be absolutely terrible for him, but it's entirely his own making. Now, the one thing that didn't get mentioned at all during the debate was Brexit. Absolutely no mention whatsoever. We had learnt a couple of days ago that non-food exports to the EU were down 18% last year, and it's hit particularly small and medium-sized firms. And both Labour and Conservatives are both saying that they're not going to increase income tax, they're not going to increase PAYE, they're not going to increase VAT. But they're going to pay for all sort of things they're going to do, they're promising to do, by clamping down on tax evasion, something that the Tories have had the opportunity to do for the last 14 years, and they're going to grow the economy. But nobody's got any idea as to how they're going to grow the economy. I'm going to make another video about Starmer and his plans to grow the economy and so on. But I think Brexit is not going to go away. I think it's going to grow and grow and grow. And I think we're going to keep getting reminders. For example, those paratroopers arriving in France yesterday for the ceremony, and then having to queue up at a table in a field to show their passports to the French authorities, French customs people, border people. I mean, that wasn't necessary. That was just the French saying, we're in control. And as with immigration, as with product standards, if we want to sell to the EU, we've totally lost control. But so be it. So it is. Yesterday, I went to Romford, and I wanted to ask a few people in the street to comment on what's going on and how they're going to vote and all this sort of thing. And I approached lots of people, lots and lots, but absolutely no one was prepared to talk to me. And ordinarily, when you go out trying to get people to answer questions or to be interviewed in the street, you've got to ask 5 to get one person. But I couldn't get anybody at all yesterday. But what I did get a lot of was people saying, I've had enough of politics. I don't want to know, don't want to talk about it. They're all crooked. They're all the same. They're all in it for themselves. And it occurred to me how politics have become degraded since Boris Johnson. I mean, people really have contempt for politicians. And when you see this Sunak making such a fool of himself, shaming the nation, really, it's not surprising. And these are the people who are going to be asked to vote. These are the people who voted for the referendum. They voted to take back control and all the rest of it. And, it's... I don't know, it's when politics is reduced to simplistic slogans and who's the most entertaining on the television. And, we've seen, as I said last week, Farage back on the scene, spouting utter rubbish. But people are taken in by it. But anyway, that's briefly what I think this week, and we'll see what happens in the debates this evening. And so, if you've watched this far, thank you very much, and until next time, bye for now.